you can go.
Okay, so, as we all know that our procession is over human nature, and I don't have a PowerPoint, I'm just going to read from what I wrote in my paper. So first, the first question is, what is the nature of the soul? Is the soul different or the same as the mind? If different, what's the difference? And as I start and begin, I'm going to talk about number 1 and number 3 also, which is what's the connection or issue between the physical brain, nervous system, and the soul or mind. So in the beginning, I just wanted to ask, who all said that the soul and mind were the same thing? Like, raise your hand if you said they were the same. And then raise your hand if you said they were different. Okay. So, in my opinion, and from my research that I've done, I said they are different, but they are similar in so many ways, and they work together. So, there have been many arguments of proving whether mind and soul are the same, or if they are different. They both come from the inner part of a human being, so particularly like the brain and maybe the heart. The soul, well, I read an article from Amanda. It's an article in 2011. The soul is the spiritual nature of the humankind. It says that it is to be separate from the body of death. It is life and is created within relationships between thoughts, actions, and emotions. The mind is like the main facility of a human being, which causes the thinking, the reasoning, and the applying of knowledge. Putting this into action, I use the example of emotions and desires. So basically, emotions come from the mind and the soul. Emotions, like desires, stem up from our soul. Desires are aimed at things that transcend. Those things will go away, and often they will die. But our soul is what triggers of whether our mind takes in for a positive or a negative, or the way you react towards a certain desire in such ways. The soul is a spiritual form, as I stated already, such as dreams, imaginations, and delusions. And the thoughts are formed from the brain. So, but you cannot have them without the soul and the body, which drives these functions. So the body, the soul, and the mind all connect with each other to work to function in the human body. So, number 2, what is the human nature at birth, and what comparative weight do heredity and environment play in the development of a person? It is probably true to say that human beings are born with the instinct of reproduction. So the need of food, clothing, shelter, sexual love, and basics are the cause of human nature, which I got that from Sherry, from Kendra Sherry, I believe that's her first name. One of the biggest questions stand today is it the cause of heredity or is it environmental? Most normal people, and what I mean by normal people is like people that's not, don't have like the basic knowledge of psychology, basically people that just know the basics of psychology. And these theories say that they would say that actions such as the way of thinking and reasoning come from heredity, but the way things are played out and actions come from environment. Which means like simple people like us, we would think that only certain things will come from your parents, and then from there, how you live, the way you live, is come from how you've grown up in such a society. Herbermann and Swisher, 2 people that wrote an article in 1999, and they referenced Socrates, and he said that human nature sees the nature as an idea or a form of a human. So the development of a person has an equal, in my opinion, has an equal effect of whether it's hereditary or environmental. An article that Gregory wrote in 2002 says, quote, "The way the people go about satisfying these behaviors is not necessarily the way that is common in society." So my person is, if only a person knows that if a person only do what the person knows. So if a person has grown up and they only see people knock each other down for competition, then that's all they would know. So if another person only knows by competing in a competition is doing research and gathering information, then that's all that person would know. And so the society just grows into each part. So if the basic person only, I just said that, sorry. Eventually, I just said that too. So, Sherry also wrote an article about genes, genes that are used in characteristics as symbol of building blocks. So she says that most people have the same building blocks, but the components can be built together in an infinite number of ways. So basically, everyone brings about the same human nature basic functions, but the way they're implied are different. So while genetics instructs a child inheritance from his parents may set out a roadmap of development, the environmental can impact their directions or express or how they're shaped. Okay, and number 4, what is the human intelligence? How does it function? How is it measured? And what is mental illness? Comsaz and Toby wrote an article in 2003, and then it says the study of nature of human intelligence designed through evolutionary psychology. Human intelligence can be genetic and passed down from generations through your parents. Intelligence is also what I believe is based on other people's accomplishments. So people that are said to be smart and the basic of like being a genius, and compared to a person that they say is not, they're only saying it because they're comparing their accomplishments towards someone that has done better than them. So, and if that's the case, then it's like you're telling me I'm not intelligent because I'm not as smart as that person, or I didn't do as much as that person did. But that's not how intelligence should be measured. In high schools and middle schools, of course, we have grade level tests, as some people already mentioned, which is the ACT and SAT. Over the years, those tests have changed because the intelligence level has changed. In 2002, there's an article that says that the brain and mind are used as the same system. The physical property is the brain, and in terms of informational processing is the mind. So the brain and the mind kind of goes along with each other. A mental illness is a disease or condition that influences the way a person thinks, feels, behaves, or relates to others, to his or her surroundings. And I got that from a mental illness website from 2002. Symptoms of a mental illness can range from mild to severe or different depending on the type of mental illness a person has. Each cell is the effect of how we look, act, and think. However, just because your parents have a mental illness doesn't mean that you're going to have that same mental illness. But with my knowledge, with the heredity of how it's set up, it just means that you are at higher risk if one of your family members have it. So that doesn't mean that you would get it. Moving on to number 5, which is the last question. What are the main functions and purposes of psychology and psychological treatment? In my study from Kendra Sherry, she says that psychology is a scientific study of the mind and behavior. A lot of people know about psychology and know what it is, but a lot of people do not know how psychology works or what it do. The treatment, there are different types of treatments, such as counseling, which is one I use. And I think the only way that one would actually work is if you do an assessment before and after doing the counseling, or a test, only because the way you can see what the person was before and then how they think afterwards. Also, educational psychology describes psychology as having 4 main goals: to describe, to explain, to predict, and to change. And I'll talk about all of those. It says that in order to know the behavior, you have to describe the behavior. And this is all from Kendra Cherry's research that she did in 2013. Through describing the behavior of humans, psychologists are better able to understand it and gain a better perspective on what it is considered a normal or abnormal behavior. The second part is to explain, where scientific studies come into play to go along with psychology theories. They want to know why people are doing the things that they are doing, so they can maybe understand it and explain it to those who really don't quite understand and explain why they're doing the things that they're doing and where it comes from. 2 examples of the to explain theories are classical conditioning and attachment theories. The third goal is to predict and consider the next move for the future references. So it can make sense to those people who they have the mental conditioning that they're in. Let's see. Once they understand more about why it happens, psychologists can use the information to make predictions about when and why a person is doing what they're doing and will it happen again. Later on in the research that I used, or that I was looking at, it says that they make predictions, that their predictions are used to be successful, so that the psychologists will know if they are looking at the information right and if they're doing the processes right. And I really didn't agree with this particular goal because I don't want anyone making a prediction all my life. I don't really agree with that. It's like either you know it or you don't. If it shows it, then it shows it. If it don't, then it don't. But as far as making predictions, I'm really not a fan of that. And then it also says that that they, with them doing that process or the experiment, it's kind of like they're using people as lab rats to see if their experiment is working or if it's not working, which I still don't agree with. And then the fourth one is to change. And that one is basically, it serves an influence or control behavior in order to make positive or lasting changes in people's lives. I believe in change, but I do not believe in changing the person. I believe in changing their perspective and their view of life with their lifestyle. Change is often measured to be good, but only if the other person understands what it means. Then you're able to make that person better suited for their lives. And that's what I agree with, and that's how I do psychology, and that's it. Any questions? Yes?
Can you name what are the four goals that Cherry came up with?
To predict, to change, what was the other two? To explain, and the first one was to describe. Thank you.
Did you do you see any role where prediction would be important for psychology? Yeah, you don't like it, I understand personally, but
yeah.
Can you see? Is there any use for it?
I think there is. Well, the only use for it would be is to the people that's doing it, of course, they went to school for it, so they know what they're doing, they know what they're teaching,
yeah,
or whatever. But what I would see the use for it is maybe just to see if theories are right or not. Right. That's the only way I could see it, like just off the top of my head, just to compare theories with one another.
And the one that I thought of was, like, I always have probation officers that want me to use like cognitive behavioral therapy because it's supposed to work. Yeah. So they want a prediction that what they're spending, and insurance companies always want this. It's a big conundrum because it is a problem. Yeah. Because then we're tied into being a partner with somebody that we don't really want to be a partner with necessarily. Mm-hmm. So it's not just between us. That's the big issue with that. But that's a good observation. Anybody else? Okay, give it another hand.